Hello everyone. So welcome to my lecture. This lecture is on the liquefaction of the gases. Until now, in our previous lectures, we have studied about several laws, including zeroth law, first law, second law of thermodynamics. Now, we have also seen about the Maxwell's thermodynamic relations and their applications as well. We have studied TS diagram, we have studied TDS equations also. So now it is time to move third law of thermodynamics. And third law of thermodynamics is about the low temperature. So for low temperature, it is a very important how to liquefy gases. That is directly related to the liquefaction of the gases. So before going to third law of thermodynamics, we have to study the concept related to liquefaction of gases. So today's objective of lecture is to understand the phenomena of liquefaction of gases and related concepts. So the outcome of today's lecture, after attending this lecture, you will be able to learn different methods to liquefy the gases. There are several methods to liquefy. With the time, there are a lot of developments. In the starting date, it was possible to liquefy the gases, but at very limited low temperature. The lowest possible temperature in early days was to achieve only minus 40, minus 50 degrees centigrade. But with the time and with the development, scientific development, it is possible to achieve low temperature as low as 4.2 Kelvin or even less than that. Okay, so to achieve the objective of today's lecture, we will first understand what is the concept of absolute zero temperature. Actually, we are always talking about in degree centigrade, so we think that 0 degree centigrade is the lowest possible. That was the belief in our very early age, right? But actually, that is not true. There is a concept of absolute zero temperature, which is much lower than the 0 degree centigrade. Okay, after introducing this concept, we will see what are the different methods of liquefaction and how much temperature from these techniques we can achieve, right? So these are classified. Actually, there are 6 methods total which can be used to achieve the liquefaction of gases. But in today's lecture, we will include 3 of them, and the rest 3 we will see in our next lecture. So here are the reference books which you can consider to study further about all these concepts and laws. Okay, let us start the first topic of today's lecture, which is concept of absolute zero. Okay, as I told you, it was believed in ancient time that the lowest possible temperature is 0 degree centigrade, and that was directly related to the ice formation. It was believed that time that ice is the coldest material on earth. There is nothing colder than ice. It was very early age time, right? So it was considered, the temperature scale was defined, and it was considered the temperature of ice is 0 degree centigrade, or the starting point of the temperature scale at that time. Okay, at that time it was also thought that the air surrounding us, it always remains in gaseous state only, whatever the temperature. So 0 degree is the temperature, but 0 degree air remains in the gaseous state. So that was believed, because 0 is the minimum possible temperature, so air also remains in the gaseous state only. It cannot convert into liquid, it cannot convert into solid or other things. But with the development, with the scientific development, and especially with the Andrews experiment on carbon dioxide gas, it was quite interesting. And if you want to know further about Andrews experiment, you can consult with my another lecture which was focused on the topic related to Andrews experiment and the discovery of critical constants related to that experiment. So what Andrews experiment told, there is a possibility of critical temperature or critical condition, below which a gas can be liquefied by only the application of pressure. Okay, so apart from this, the study of several other laws related to ideal gas, they have stated that the lowest conceivable temperature on centigrade scale is minus 273 degrees centigrade, which is much lower than the ice temperature. Okay, that was only 0 degrees centigrade. So now it is considered, it was accepted throughout the world that minus 273 degrees centigrade is the absolutely zero. So it is taken as a universal zero temperature, and that was defined as a absolute temperature scale. So now it is considered that 0 Kelvin is the lowest possible temperature, which is equals to minus 273 degree centigrade. Okay, this is about the concept of absolute zero temperature. Now we will see different methods of liquefaction of gases. So actually we were talking about the third law of thermodynamics. I told you that we are going to study third law of thermodynamics, and that was proposed by Nernst and is related to the low temperature. But the production of low temperature is actually directly linked with the liquefaction of gases. Okay, the normal method to liquefy is normally just to take the suitable gas, and we should use some mechanical process. Okay, first to liquefy this by mechanical process, and then we can evaporate it. If we do this process, the latent heat of evaporation will be obtained at the expenses of heat content of liquid itself, and that's why if the heat will be absorbed from liquid, it will give you the cooling effect, because the temperature, because the energy is taken from the liquid. So if it is taken from the liquid and it is not allowed to exchange the heat from outside the temperature, then it will give you cooling effect, right? And this was the very usual method, and it was the first method which was used to liquefy the gases. But there are several other methods to produce very low temperatures, such as method of freezing mixture. Second is evaporation of liquid under reduced pressure. Third one is adiabatic expansion of gas. Fourth is Joule-Thomson expansion. Fifth is regenerative cooling, and the sixth one is adiabatic demagnetization of a paramagnetic salt. So now we will see only first three methods in this lecture. Okay, so the first method is freezing mixture method, and this is the very easy method. In fact, we can say this is the easiest method for the production of temperatures lower than that of ice. And how to get it? It is just simply to add some salt to ice. If we add some salt to ice, in that case what will happen? Some freezing mixture is formed, and salt will be dissolved by the water adhering to ice, and because of that more ice will melt, right? So the heat necessary to form this process, to complete this process, will be taken from the heat of solution, and the latent heat necessary for melting ice will be extracted from that mixture only. If the heat is taken from that mixture only, then ultimately what it will do, it will fall the temperature of that mixture, and that will make the principle of that freezing mixture. This is the principle which is involved in freezing mixture. But there is a limitation of this method. What was the limitation? That the lowest temperature achieved by this process was not very low. It was depending directly on the what salt we are using, and that is known as eutectic temperature. The lowest temperature which we can achieve from this method was lying in the range of minus 50 to minus 60 degrees centigrade. For example, if we use different salt such as magnesium chloride or NH4Cl or NaNO3, we can achieve different temperatures from ranging from minus 4 degree to minus 55 or minus 60 degrees centigrade. The lowest possible temperature which is known until now is by using calcium chloride, and the temperature could be achieved as minus 55 degrees centigrade. Okay, now we will move to the second method, which is cooling by evaporation under reduced pressure. Okay, so we know that whenever any liquid evaporate, some heat is required to convert it to the gas, right? That whenever liquid will be changing into the gas form, there will be some heat which need to be supplied. Okay, and normally if we are not supplying any heat to that liquid, the heat will be taken from the latent heat of vaporization. Okay, this is directly equal to the latent heat of vaporization. If the liquid is isolated from the atmosphere, that means there is no heat exchange between the gas and the atmosphere, then this latent heat of vaporization will be taken from the heat content of that particular liquid. And if it is taken from the liquid, then it will fall the temperature of that particular liquid, and that will create the concept of cooling. If the temperature is falling of the liquid, then it will create the cooling effect and it will reduce the temperature. The amount of that cooling directly depend on the nature of liquid and the rate of evaporation. If we want to get very low temperature, the liquefied gases such as ammonia can be used, so that we can achieve very low temperature. These days, these processes are employed in the refrigerating machine, which are classified into two processes. Number one is vapor compression machine, and second is vapor absorption machine. In comparison to second method, first method is more used commercially. Okay, so we will see what is this method, vapor compression machine. The vapor compression machine actually consists of three main parts. It is, one is compressor, second is condenser, and third one is evaporator. The compressor simply work on the piston and valve principle. This consists of one piston and two valves. One is for the suction of low pressure and low pressure suction from the evaporator, and the other one is to discharge the compressed vapor to the condenser part. The condenser is nothing, just it is made of copper coil which is embedded in a vessel, through which a coolant, or maybe we can use some coolant, different kind of coolant, or we can simply use the cold water also. The cold water is passes through the copper coil and it makes the cooling process. And the third important part of this compression machine is the evaporator, and that is used to evaporate the liquid. Now here is the structure, here is the components of that assembly. You can see here, this is compressor, this is condenser, expansion valve, and here is the evaporator. So what happened, we can start from the compressor part. Here it is attached with a piston, and whenever the piston moves upwards, then what it will do, it will reduce the pressure inside the cylinder, inside the cylinder of compressor. This is kind of cylinder. Compressor is nothing else. This is fitted with a piston. If you pull piston upwards, then it will suck the air or it will suck the pressure, right? So what it will do, it will reduce the pressure, right? And that pressure is reduced so much that the value of that pressure fall much below the pressure in this part, in this evaporator. So what it will do, it will suck the gas into compressor part. Now after closing this valve, we start to compress this gas to desired pressure. Okay, after compressing it, what it will do, we can open this valve this side and allow the gas to go to the condenser at through the discharge valve and discharge pipe. The vapor at high pressures enter into the condenser, right? And that condenser is maintained at low temperature, and because of low temperature, that vapor which is going from the compressor side, it get cooled and it liquefies the vapor in condenser part. Then this liquid passes through the expansion valve, which what this expansion valve do, it does separate the high pressure part to low pressure part, right? So the liquid passes through the expansion valve, reduce the pressure of liquid and delivers it to the evaporator. You can see this is the evaporator. So this expansion valve only allow the low pressure liquid, right? When it reaches to evaporator, due to the low pressure, the liquid evaporates. So liquid is converted to the gas again, right? And extract its latent heat from the cold storage space. This is actually at the cold storage space. So as a result, the temperature of cold storage space further cool down, and the low pressure, because of that low pressure, it is sucked again to the compressor and the cycle continues. Okay, this is the process of this vapor compression machine. First, we start reducing the pressure inside the compressor by pulling the piston up, right? After pulling the piston up, the pressure here is reduced, and when it is reduced, this valve is open and the pressure from the evaporator side allows to go inside the compressor. After it reaches to compressor, we just close this valve and start compressing the that gas much, right? After compressing, this gas is allowed to go the condenser, which is actually the which work to change the gas to liquid form. This is the condenser work. Okay, now after passing through the condenser, it discharge heat into surroundings. Now from here it is at high pressure, because from the compressor we have allowed it at high pressure. Now we are passing the gas, we are allowing gas to pass through expansion valve, which is working as a separator for high pressure gas to low pressure gas. So high pressure gas remains on this side, it allows only low pressure liquid. Okay, when the liquid goes into low pressure side, when it reaches to evaporator, because of low pressure it changed to the gas again. Okay, when it changed to gas, the pressure is already low, so this low pressure gas allow to go again into compressor. So this is the total repetition of this cycle, and it will, in each cycle it would produce low temperature. Okay, because here whatever we get from here, it will be colder further. In each cycle it will get more colder, right? So this is the principle of vapor compression machine. Whatever I told is written over here, you can read it further. Now we will introduce the third method of cooling, that is known as cooling by adiabatic expansion. So you already know what is adiabatic process. Adiabatic process is where the heat exchange is not allowed. So that means the working gas is completely insulated from the surroundings, so there is no heat allowed to enter or leave the system. Now if under this condition, if we allow gas to expand against some external pressure, so what it will do, the gas has to do some external work at the cost of its internal energy. It will oppose the pressure applied. So what it will do, it has to do some external work by the expense of internal energy. And because internal energy is a function of temperature, the temperature of gas ultimately will fall down during the adiabatic expansion. If highly compressed gas is suddenly allowed to expand adiabatically, it has to perform large amount of work and intense cooling results. Right? Now we will see how it is achieved, and we will see some mathematical expression for that. So for example, if P is the pressure and T is the temperature of a perfect gas, then during adiabatic process we have already derived some equations. Now we are taking here P into V to the power gamma equals to constant for any adiabatic process, where gamma is the ratio of specific heat at constant pressure and constant volume. So we can write it gamma equals to Cp upon Cv. Now if we use the ideal gas equation, Pv equals to RT, we can change it into different forms. Like if we want to get relation between temperature and pressure, we can replace it by that terms. So it will become T into P to the power 1 minus gamma upon gamma equals to constant. We have just simply put the value of V from PV equals to RT. Now, if we are considering that Pi and Ti are the initial pressure and temperature of the given mass of gas, then second thing we are considering that Pf and Tf are its final pressure and temperature. So what we have, according to this rule, Tp to the power 1 minus gamma upon gamma equals to constant. The both state multiplication of T and P should be equal. So that we are writing Ti into Pi to the power 1 minus gamma upon gamma equals to Tf Pf to the power 1 minus gamma upon gamma. Okay, from here we can get that Tf equals to Ti into Pi upon Pf to the power 1 minus gamma upon gamma. We can rearrange it and we can write Ti into Pf upon Pi to the power gamma minus 1 upon gamma. So it is clear from here that any gas at initial ordinary temperature Ti and compressed at high pressure Pi is suddenly allowed to expand. The gas may be liquefied or even solidified also. Okay. Now we can understand this from an example, and the example is from CO2 gas. Now consider that CO2 gas is allowed to compress to a high pressure, for example 150 bar at room temperature, and suddenly release it to the atmospheric pressure. So the final temperature Tf would be given by Tf equals to Ti into Pf upon Pi to the power gamma minus 1 upon gamma. Now if we put the value of Ti, for example 300, because it is room temperature, so that is the initial temperature, into, now Pf is, it is released to atmospheric pressure, so that means it is 1 divided by the initial pressure, that was 150 bar, so 1 upon 150 to the power gamma is for CO2, it is given as 1.3 minus 1 divided by 1.3. If we solve this expression, we get finally 96 Kelvin. So that means we started at room temperature and high pressure. When it is released to atmospheric pressure, its final temperature could be achieved as 96 Kelvin. And that makes carbon dioxide not only liquefied, but it converts into solid form. Okay, so that means that solid carbon dioxide is known as dry ice. So this is a good example to understand. If we make the cooling by adiabatic expansion, it can convert the gases to liquid state, or even in some cases it can convert to the solid state also, as we could have seen in the CO2 gas example. Okay, now we will see what is the machine we can use for this purpose, cooling by adiabatic expansion. So here the name of the machine is just simply gas expansion machine, and that machine is nothing just which is using the above principle for cooling purpose is known as gas expansion machine. It has different parts. There are 4 different parts. Number 1 is the compressor, that is driven electrically. We need to supply electric power only. Second is just a water cooler which used to cool the gases, and the third one is an expansion engine which allow the expansion adiabatically, so there is a proper insulation. And the fourth one is the reservoir, or we can call cold storage space. Okay, so the working substance is firstly compressed here adiabatically to a whatever pressure we want. To that desired pressure, the gas is first compressed, and this compressed gas is passing through this water cooler so that the suitable temperature can be attained. After this passing, it is allowed to go to expansion engine, and that expansion engine allow the gas to adiabatically expand, okay, to the pressure that is equal to the input pressure of compression. Okay, and due to that expansion, it gets cold and it is gone through the cold storage space. Okay, after passing through here, it is gone again to compression, and this cycle goes on. And in each cycle, because we are supplying comparatively colder gas to the compressor, it will in the second cycle it can achieve much less temperature than the first cycle. Okay, so this is the working principle and this is the working machine of adiabatic gas expansion, right? So this is about the cooling process. Now this is time to do some exercise which can let us know that what did you learn today. Okay, so here the first question is, using adiabatic demagnetization, the minimum temperature produced is option A is 1 Kelvin, second is 10 to the power minus 3 Kelvin, fourth the option C is 10 to the power minus 4 Kelvin, and the last option is 10 to the power minus 5 Kelvin. So the right answer for this we can achieve using adiabatic demagnetization, we can achieve 10 to the power minus 3 Kelvin. So the right answer is B. The temperature of inversion of a gas is A upon RB, 3A upon RB, 2A upon RB, or 8A upon 27 RB. So we have already discussed about the temperature of inversion, below which the gas can be, above which the gas gives a heating effect rather than cooling effect. So the right answer for this temperature of inversion is given by 2A upon RB. So the answer C is the right option for this. If Ti is the temperature of inversion, Tb is the Boyle's temperature, and Tc is the critical temperature. It is combining three different concepts. First one is temperature of inversion, which is related to Joule-Thomson cooling. Second is Boyle's temperature, that we have studied when we were studying the modification of Boyle's law. That time we have seen Boyle's temperature. And the third one is critical temperature. So what is the right expression? Ti is less than Tb, that is less than Tc, or Tc and Ti both are greater than Tb. The option C is Tb is greater than Ti, that is greater than Tc, or option D is Ti equals to 2 Tb equals to 6.75 Tc. So the right answer for this question is answer D. Ti is equals to twice of Boyle's temperature, and the value in terms of critical temperature is 6.75 times of critical temperature. The next question is, the critical temperature of a gas is 31 degrees centigrade, the room temperature is 27 degrees centigrade, then the gas in the room can be liquefied, cannot be liquefied, will be solidified, or will break into electrons. Oh, come on, this is not possible to break into electrons at such a nominal conditions. It cannot be liquefied. No, that is different answer. So the right answer for this question is can be liquefied. The right answer is A for this question. The next question is, the absolute zero temperature is 0 degrees centigrade, 273 degrees centigrade, or minus 273 degrees centigrade, or none of the above. Yes, the absolute zero scale was defined as Kelvin scale, and according to that, the minus 273 degrees centigrade is the lowest possible temperature which can be attained. So that's why it is defined as absolute zero temperature. So the right answer is option C, minus 273 degrees centigrade. The next question is, the lowest temperature range that can be attained by method of freezing mixture is given by minus 50 to 60 degrees centigrade, minus 200 degrees centigrade, minus 300 degrees centigrade, or 0 degrees centigrade. So 0 degree is the highest temperature. This cannot be the right answer. Now the answer is among A, B, and C. If you recall the method of freezing mixture, it is done by mixing some salt into the liquid. So we have studied that there is a limitation of attaining very low temperature. It can attain only up to minus 50 to minus 60 degree, and that is to by adding CaCl2, calcium chloride, to the water. We can achieve this minus 50 to minus 60. So option A is the right answer for this question. Let us come to the next question. If A, B, C, D are the virial coefficient, then what is the right answer? A is greater than B, that is greater than C, greater than D. Option D is B upon A equals to 10 to the power minus 3, or C upon A equals to 10 to the power minus 5, or D is all of the above. So definitely the answer is D. All of the above are true for these bireal coefficient. Okay, A is always greater than B, is always greater than C, is always greater than D, and also the ratio of B and A is 10 to the minus 3, while the ratio of C to A is 10 to the power minus 5. So everything is right. All of the above are correct. Okay, the next question is the boil temperature TB is given by the relation A equals to 27 by 8 Tc, TB equals to A upon Br, both of the above or none of the above. So boil temperature we have already seen, both relations are right. Here is the A equals to 27 by 8 Tc and TB equals to A upon Br. Both are the right answer. So option C is the right answer for this question. Okay. Now liquid helium is superconductor at above 2.19 Kelvin, below 4.2 Kelvin, below 2.19 Kelvin, or below ice point. Which is the right answer? For liquid helium to be superconductor, 4.2 Kelvin is necessary. So below 4.2 Kelvin is the right answer for this question. Now the last question for today's quiz is the decrease in temperature during adiabatic demagnetization is more when initial magnetic field is high, more when dimagnetic solid is used, more when initial temperature is high, or more when initial magnetic field is low. Which is the right answer? The right answer for this question is A. More, the decrease in temperature during adiabatic demagnetization is more when initial magnetic field is kept high. Okay, so that's all for today's quiz. We have learned today about the absolute zero scale first. In the beginning, we have learned that in the beginning it was believed that 0 degree centigrade is the lowest possible temperature, but after the development of science with time, it was achieved that especially Andrew's experiment was the key point that time, that it was believed that we can achieve much lower temperature than 0 degree centigrade. From the laws of thermodynamics, it was demonstrated that the lowest possible temperature is minus 273 degrees centigrade, and that's why it was termed as 0 Kelvin. The absolute scale was defined from there. Okay, it was also believed in early days that air cannot be liquefied, or air cannot be changed to solid at any temperature. But after the discovery by Andrews, it was believed that of course there is possibility to convert air or any gas to liquid or solid by changing the pressure condition or temperature condition, right? Then we have learned different methods. There are several methods. So we have learned all of them. Actually, we have studied today three different methods. Now the rest three will be studied in our next lecture. Okay. So I hope everything is clear until now. If you have any doubt, any clarification, if you want, you can write an email, and you can write comments in the box here. You can consult other videos also if you want to learn about other laws of thermodynamics, because there are several things which are getting used in each of my lectures. So all the lectures are available on our YouTube channel, School of Applied Science, Gyan Bihar University. Okay, thank you for your attention. Thank you for your patience. Thanks a lot.